Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic, and welcome to Good Morning Asgard, episode 7, which potentially could be the last Good Morning Asgard podcast episode, at least on a regular weekly basis, because as many of you know who follow me on my main channel on YouTube, Odin's movie blog, next week starts faculty meetings, teacher meetings for me, which should go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which means my mornings will essentially be taken up. And that means, unfortunately, the end of the summer schedule, which would include things like the Good Morning Asgard podcasts on Twitch, like today, for example, and also Asgardian movie mornings as well. We have at least one more in us next Monday for the movies. But as far as everything else goes for the summer schedule, things are going to be a changing because school is starting in less than 2 weeks, which is just an insane concept to me. Obviously, with everything going on with COVID, a lot of things have been delayed, a lot of things have been moved up, a lot of changes are going into effect, and so our school year has been moved up by about an entire week, so that way we can not only get us teachers on board on the same page with everything going on, but also so that way we can get our students on the same page and basically on board with all of the various new policies that we're going to have to implement, including the fact that they're going to have to wear a mask the entire time that they're in the building at school, obviously with the one exception being when they're eating lunch. But even then, of course, they'll have to have 6 feet of distance between them and their friends, which, again, obviously the diocese and the county, etc., they have to have these measures in for not just safety, but also for their own safety, legally speaking, because it obviously makes sense that no one wants a lawsuit. And that's really what it comes down to, is what is the most that we can do to try to avoid any potential future lawsuits, and what is the most that we can do to try and make sure that, one, everyone feels safe, and two, that we avoid the potentiality of one case happening. Because essentially, if one student or one teacher is found to test positive for COVID in this current environment, and they are seen to have been at school, well, then at that point, you're looking at potentially having to close the school down for either a short period of time or for an extended period of time. Really, again, these are uncharted waters that we're really going into. That's why we've had a huge emphasis this summer for us teachers about learning more so about what we're going to be planning for online learning, how we're going to be implementing it, how basically what we're going to be doing for online learning, we're going to be doing throughout the entire school year, as far as keeping everything up to date with, for us, we use Microsoft Office. So keeping, our teams updated, keeping all of the files updated. So that way, if anyone has to go away, if anyone has to stay home, if anyone is choosing to stay home, because actually that's the other odd thing, is that students this year actually get the option. They can actually choose to stay home. They don't have to come to school if they don't feel comfortable, if they're immunocompromised, if someone in their family is immunocompromised. But that means that we then, for those students, luckily it's not too many, have to try and essentially make a different platform for them, or make a different lesson plan for them, or at the very least, adapt the lesson plan that we have to suit them as well. But anyway, welcome to the Good Morning Asgard podcast. Again, probably one of the last times we'll be able to do that as far as this summer is concerned. Once the school year starts and I'm able to get a better grasp of the schedule overall, I will try to adapt what the school year schedule will be. I imagine that it probably won't be all that different than what we have going on already, which of course is the Tuesday evening stream, the Saturday evening stream, and then potentially adding in a Saturday morning stream, which would likely be the movie stream, the AMM, versus keeping this going on Twitch, since I really don't use my Twitch for all that much. But of course, as you all know, everything is fair game, everything is up to change. And as you can see, we have a couple of topics on the agenda for this morning. And for those that are new to the Good Morning Asgard podcast, essentially this is more of a long-form discussion-based podcast where instead of just jumping from point to point to point to point, right? Because normally on YouTube, we've got several people coming in, all coming in with their own questions and ideas of what they want to talk about, even though I try and keep things on a general spectrum of ideas to try and focus the questions. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. With this one, it really is centered more so on just really a couple of main topics, which of course you can all add in on, and I will of course address comments just like I do on YouTube. It just might take me a while to get to them, even though it's not that many people here. It's just, again, I think it's a different way of doing things, and I think that some people enjoy the longer form podcast discussions rather than just jumping from point to point, less ADD-like. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and give some shout outs to people that are currently in the chat. So Liquid Blake, good morning to you. We got Frank in the clan here as well, saying he was on with Lethal while I was waiting for you. Well, thank you very much for letting me know that. He says that there's no school in schools until maybe September doing online schooling. Yeah, so essentially that's we're going to be doing essentially online learning, but we'll still be at school, with the mindset being that if any student ever has to stay home for an extended period of time, that they'll get the same access that they already would have had, So that's basically the mindset, is that. And it makes a lot of sense, and it works, right? Because it means, let's say a COVID outbreak happens at our school and we have to shut down for quarantine for 2 weeks. That means we have to do 2 weeks of online learning, and it means that the transition is not going to be that difficult, because really the teachers don't change anything, because we're just going to continue to do what we were already doing using Microsoft Teams and things like that. And then the students also really won't have to change a whole lot either. So we'll see how all that stuff goes, though. Fresh show, what's going on? Glad to see you here this morning. Liquid Blake says we could just keep the shows going through term and all pretend we are homeschooling online students. Teach us Odin, yeah, for sure. That'd be interesting, And hey, if there's a time when we have to stay home for an extended period of time, that might give me some more stretch room there. However, probably not, because basically our way of online learning this year will be different than what it was last year. Last year, we had a lot more free time, a lot more freedom to decide how to do our classes. This year, it's going to be expected to essentially us teach like a normal class would be taught, with the difference being that it's online, using online means and video chats and things like that instead. Mr. Roy, good morning to you, good sir. Glad to see you here. So, got some people here. Thank you all very much for supporting this podcast. It hasn't been the most successful podcast that I've ever done. Twitch is a very weird animal. Again, it's a very different type of people. It's a different type of crowd. It looks like I mostly get people from my YouTube for my YouTube crowd that want to help support me over here. So again, I really do appreciate y'all, the ones that do come over and support this stream, even though maybe you're not on Twitch all that often. Twitch, in my mind, is always just so much more geared towards gaming streams than it is for talking or podcast related stuff. So that's why it always makes me so, fascinating to see. And of course, you have some people where it's like, oh yeah, the just chatting stuff it can be successful, and then you look over, and I'm looking at recommended channels, and I'm seeing some people with 300, 1,000 people watching, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, oh, that's because they're Twitch thoughts. So basically, the only way to be successful in the just chatting sphere is to essentially be a Twitch thought, which I am not. So it kind of makes me sad, though. Because it says a lot about modern day culture. It says a lot about masculinity in our modern day culture, and I think it's kind of a sad thing. But anyway, with all that being said, the first topic, of course, is one that I've mentioned previously in a video for the main channel, also one that I talked about on last night's live stream, and that is the end of the box office. Because really, we're living in a time now where the box office is essentially dead. And this is something that I think a lot of us have been kind of delaying in our minds. We've been holding off on it. We've been thinking, oh no, everything's going to be fine. The box office, the theaters, they'll be closed for a few months. They'll come back. Nothing's going to change. And I think now you're starting to see, not just from people like me, but also even in people who cover this stuff in the media, right? From the deadlines and from the other places as well. You're starting to see, I think, a shift in the mindset. And the shift in the mindset is that, oh, there's been some permanent damage done to the cycle and life of the box office as we know it. You're never going to see what we saw prior to this COVID outbreak. You're not going to see the movies breaking records nonstop. You're not going to see movies making their money back, 5, 10-fold in the same way at the same rate that they were beforehand. You're not going to see the number of billion-dollar films we were getting the last 5 years especially. You're not going to see, I would argue, you're not going to see any $2 billion movies anymore. And I think that's something that a lot of people are still dragging their feet on. I think it's something that still a lot of people are not quite ready to admit to themselves, but I am. And it definitely makes me sad because, as I've mentioned, I kind of got my start, or at the very least, I kind of got more attention from the likes of, Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers and from a lot of my early subscribers because of the way I cover the box office. Because it's something that really not a whole lot of people were doing. Like, as far as mainstream people, there's 3 names that come to mind when it comes to box office coverage, and only 2 of which are on YouTube, right? Grace Randolph, who obviously would do some box office coverage of her own. You also had Dan Murrell, who now is on his own with his own channel, who also became very famous. But actually, his stuff actually became famous probably around the same time that I was doing my channel, right? He was known for doing box office tracking, but his charting became more and more advanced the last couple years, really. And that's why he's been able to bring that over to his main channel. So you got Grace Randolph and Dan Murrell are the 2 big ones that were doing it on YouTube. And then, of course, you have our boy, Scotty Boy Mendelson, who writes for Forbes.com. The problem with all 3 of those people, though, is that they would normally take the numbers and would normally add their own spin to it. And we can argue that I would do the same thing as well. The difference is that they were very much less interested in making bold predictions, very much less interested in going into the real reason why films were failing when they weren't expected to, right? And really the big one that kind of got my attention and got the attention of me, got Jeremy's attention of me, was my coverage of Solo: A Star Wars Story. And the reason why is because everyone, right, up until the very beginning was like, this movie's going to make so much money, and then it didn't. And then all you ended up hearing was, oh yeah, it underperformed. Oh, it underperformed. And I was looking at all the numbers and I'm like, no, this is not just an underperformance. This is a movie that at this rate is going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. And it took them like 6 months to a year to finally actually admit that Solo was a major flop and lost north of $100 million. And that's something that I had been saying for a long time. And so the reason why the death of the box office really upsets me and frustrates me is because it's something that I, as I kept on doing it, realized, oh, I hate math, but I'm good at this. Or I at the very least understand it to an extent that I feel comfortable talking about it, and to an extent that I feel comfortable enough making predictions, giving ranges, and also giving explanations as to why a film wasn't doing well. And I don't think that's something that you really found anywhere else on YouTube or on any media platform, because as we all know, most people in the media, most people with public personas these days who have any clout whatsoever, right, have their media passes, get to see their movies early, etc., most of them are shills. Most of them will say anything and everything to sugarcoat when things are bad, to kind of, curb the blow, you could say, if things are bad as well. Maybe not be as harsh, to overly praise when things are okay. And then, of course, the gush when things are pretty good. And that's just not something that I ever really felt comfortable doing. As you all know, one of the things that I started off with, and you can go back to some of the first videos I ever did, right? I've been the critic who is a cynic for a long time. And that's not just a catchphrase for me. It's kind of the way that I view film. It's kind of the way that I view life. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people respect it, some people don't. But it all comes from this mindset of people perceive me to have a more cynical approach and a more cynical view of the world, when for me, it's just, no, that's just what I think is reality. So, people say cynicism, and I say, no, realism. I try and stay grounded in the real world, right? I try not to sugarcoat the things. I try and explain and give context. If there is ever a bias, I say, hey, by the way, I have a bias on this. So take my words for how you will, understanding that there's a bias. No one else really in the mainstream media, when it comes to box office coverage, and again, there's a very specific category here, can really, I think, say the same thing. Because they also don't really ever say, oh, I have a bias on this, right? And it makes me sad, though, because with the box office being in the state that it's in, where it's been dead in the United States now for months, it has no signs of ever recovering, let alone this year or next year, and potentially ever again. And now you're seeing a big move, of course, to home streaming, to home media, to video on demand services, to rentals, purchases, to things just going straight to their streaming services like Disney Plus and HBO Max, etc. And now basically we're losing that metric. We're losing that ability to really track the success or failure of a movie. And so it's like we're now moving into a new era where people like me, segments from Grace Randolph, because obviously Grace Randolph does a lot more, Dan Murrell as well, right, with the box office tracking. We are now essentially this dying breed where I don't think, Scotty Boy Mendelson, whose main job is covering the box office. Though, of course, since the box office shut down, he's been covering other things too. But essentially, we're a dying breed. There is not going to be a resurgence in the box office in any way that's going to be worth talking about, to the extent of it being, oh man, I was wrong. It's going to be saved. Everything's going to be great, And that might be a cynical perspective, but hey, that's what you get. That's what you get from me, right? But I'm also, I think, not being cynical on this. I think I'm just keeping it real, right? Because what am I seeing? I'm seeing there's a box office that has been shut down. There's theaters that have been shut down since March. There's studios like Universal that are already releasing brand new movies that cost them hundreds of millions of dollars onto video on demand and actually making profit off of it. Maybe not as much profit had they had a theatrical release, but still making profit nonetheless. And all it takes, and I'm waiting for it to happen because it's going to happen at least once, with the studios being the way they are right now and the movie theaters not being sure of things either. All it takes is one big major blockbuster. Because so far, Trolls World Tour is the biggest movie that has gotten a release onto a video on demand platform. So paying for it beforehand, $20 for a rental, which, and then again, if you're a single person, it's ridiculous. Why would you pay $20 just to rent it? Family of 4, $20 sounds pretty damn good, right? But what happens when and this is not going to be the film, Tenet, right? That's not going to be the movie. Christopher Nolan is going to basically go to his grave making sure that doesn't happen. But what if a Warner Brothers film like Wonder Woman 1984, what if they say, oh yeah, we're releasing this on HBO Max and we're going to charge a $10 premium? Or at the very least, we're going to release it on iTunes, Google Play, and it's going to be available for rental, etc. at this specific price. Once that happens, if there is any sense or metric of success given from the studio on that, the box office and the theaters as we know it are completely dead, right? They're already on death's door. They're already hearing the death knells, right? They're already at that point. But the dagger in the heart would be once any major studio releases any big, major blockbuster direct to video on demand, and here's the caveat, it's successful. The reason why, because some people say, oh, that's already going to happen. That's already happening now. But it's not. You're not seeing any major movies really getting put onto the video on demand. And there's some people that think they know more than they do, and they really don't. Because the reason why studios haven't done that to this point is because the money, prior to the lockdown was still in putting movies out in the theater. Because even though they still had to split their revenues, and the revenue split was usually 60-40 by the end of the theatrical run, 60% of the movie, so 60% of the box office number going to the studio, 40% to the theater. Even though they had to still do that split, they got so much money from that. That's where most of their money came from. We're getting those tickets at the box office. The problem, though, is that when the theaters eventually do come back, and again, if they come back in any major way, again, really the big holdout right now, I think, is AMC, because AMC is the largest, and they still, last time I checked, are still sticking to that end of July opening of 450 of their screens, planning to open all 650 of their screens a week after that. Once that happens, we start getting some metrics on how those theaters are doing, etc. That'll give us a better idea about the current state of movie theaters in general. The studios are going to be paying attention to those numbers, right? Keep in mind, Tenet has not been put back on the release calendar. Tenet has still been pushed back altogether. I imagine you'll probably see something similar happen with other movies the closer that we get to them. You know, obviously the next big one from Warner Brothers would be a film like Wonder Woman in 1984. Don't be surprised if you start seeing movies get pushed just completely to 2021 and then just give up completely on 2020 as far as major releases are concerned. More independent films or films that haven't come out and have supposed, for example, New Mutants. I honestly, at this point, if New Mutants does not get released onto demand or onto Disney Plus for free, I don't believe that film's ever coming out. But you have all of these different things, all of these different cogs going on right now. And just my own thought on it is that the movie theaters are never going to be able to fully recover. The studios are right now. And again, do I have knowledge of this? Do I have inside sources? Do I have any experience working in a studio? No. But I have worked in a movie theater. I have seen the sheets of booking, right? I have seen the booking sheets about how bookers will choose how many screens are on a particular film. I know that certain studios have certain requirements for their movies to be shown in a specific theater, right? Disney especially is notorious for this. There's a local theater back in New Orleans called the Britannia. And whenever the Britannia shows a Disney movie, part of the contract is that normally it's a single screen theater. Part of their contract is that they cannot show at any other time any other movie. They can only show the Disney movie that they have in their screen. All day, all showtimes have to be Disney for, I think, an extended period of time, just like with most things. So we know, or I know, how this industry works to an extent, right? And so when I'm making these predictions or I'm making these guesses, it's not coming from a place of being completely ignorant, right? So I have some knowledge of it. But I guarantee you this is what's happening behind the scenes in the studios right now. Every single major studio right now is talking with their digital marketing teams, is talking with essentially their digital presence, whatever structure they have in place, right? With the Disney Plus team, with the HBO Max team for Warner Brothers, right? And they're saying, can we, or how can we get premium content onto these services? How can we, behind the paywall of our subscription fee, make our subscribers or encourage or push our subscribers to spend extra money on brand new releases? What are the numbers on that? How likely are they to do that? What kind of money can we expect from that? Can our servers handle that? Do we need to upgrade our servers right now so that we could be ready to pull the plug on that, to push the lever on that if it ever comes to that point? That's what's going on right now, because that is the future of movies, right? The future of movies is streaming. There's some people that leave comments on my videos saying like, well, you're just, blah, 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 blah. You're living in the past, the future is streaming. I agree with you. I don't think they're ready yet, though. And the reason why, as I said before, is because the money to be made at this point, even still, because the theaters haven't reopened yet, we don't know what the audiences are going to look like. We don't know what things are going to look like once things are, rocking and rolling again. But I guarantee you, once those things happen and the box office, because this I can predict, and the box office is half, 25% less than what it once was, even if it's going at full steam, even if you have as many people coming back as are comfortable coming back, once they realize that they've just lost now a huge portion of the movie-going populace, that is when you'll have these conversations become a lot more real. And again, the levers start to be pulled on, oh, hey, studios, hey, movie theaters, we're going to change things up, right? That release window, that 3-month release window that's normal, right? Where a movie can only be shown in theaters for 3 months before it can be released on any other platform. That's going to go away. That's going to get renegotiated. You're going to see that get condensed, I would say probably in half, if I had to take a guess. Could be more, could be less. But if I had to guess, put money on it, I would say probably half. Meaning a movie can be out in theaters a month and a half, and then boom, now it's available on VOD. And if that happens, you tell somebody, okay, you can either see this movie on the big screen right now, or you can wait a month and a half and access it on your own home theater. What do you think they're going to go with? Because the whole idea of renting films for $20, that's just a temporary holdover. The end game and the end goal is going to be, oh, after a month and a half, hey, if you want to watch this brand new Disney movie, come on over to Disney Plus and spend $10 premium, and you get access to it for 48 hours, whatever. Watch it like you would a normal movie. We've upgraded our servers. We've upgraded our bandwidth capacities. You can watch this in 4K HDR, right? We can watch this in the highest quality possible. Because then what you're doing is now you're pushing a huge portion of the people that normally would have in the past before COVID had gone to the theater and spent their money on the tickets there, now giving Disney money directly. Because that's the difference. Any money that would go directly to Disney Plus or HBO Max or any of the other services is going directly to the studio. No, like, again, other than overhead cost of upkeeping the servers, etc., which is already something that they would be accounting for, they're not splitting it with anyone. Movie theaters, they got to split with them. If it gets put on iTunes, Google Play, hey, there's a split there too. For anyone interested in that, the split there is around 70-30. So if you put a movie out to rent, this is just for rentals. If you put a movie out to rent on iTunes or Google Play, a studio gets 70% of the rental fee, of the rental cost, and iTunes gets around 30% of it. Same with Google Play and all the other places, right? So there is a lot more money to be made in this online sphere. They're just not ready yet. But don't be fooled. They're working on it. These conversations are happening. And basically, unless movie theaters can innovate, unless they can start to reopen and think differently, you're going to see a very quick decline and a very quick death for movie theaters as we know it. I mean, the death's already going to happen. The death of movie theaters is inevitable. And as I've been saying, I thought maybe it would be 10 years out before COVID. After COVID, I was like, all right, it's going to be 5 years out. Now, maybe 2 years. Could be. Again, really, it depends on the marketplace. There very well could be enough people that still want to go to a movie theater that can keep things going for longer, right? But that's a huge X factor that we don't have any data on. But here's the other danger, speaking of data. If any of this stuff gets moved to the studios directly, to the streaming services directly, you know what you lose? Reported box office revenue. Because think about it. When you hear about streaming services like Netflix, what do you hear? Oh, these are our top trending movies. Oh, we claim millions of people watch this movie. Numbers that come directly from the companies themselves, which can be cooked, can be exaggerated, right? They could have their own metrics that make things seem better than what they are. Now, obviously, they're going to have to report this with the government, right? But basically, the idea of tracking how much money they're bringing in, though, is going to be gone. So there goes the box office. There goes the box office records. There goes opening weekend records. There goes Thursday night opening weekend records. Again, all that stuff goes away. And as I said, I think it's going to go away much more quickly because of everything that's going on. So anyway, if you are new to the podcast, that's what I do here. So I go on for tangents, I go on for a little bit longer, and then I jump into the chat to see what y'all have to say about this specific topic and answer any questions that y'all might have. Remember that if for Twitch, even though it's not many people, I ask that if you have a question or comment about any of the topics that I'm mentioning here, please just tag the channel name. Because it's very easy to do. Just put at Odin's Movie Vlog. It'll pop up. You can click on it, and it's quite easy. And for the 8 or 9 people that are watching, thank you so much for being here. Follow. Click that follow button. It is free if you've not done so already. All right, so let's jump into it. Liquid Blake says, the one I am most sad about is Bill and Ted 3. I've been waiting 3 decades basically for that one, and now we stumble at the last hurdle, it feels like. Yeah, man, I hear you. You know, there's a lot of films that people have been excited about for years, for decades, as you mentioned, with Bill and Ted 3. For others, maybe not as long, right? I know that I was looking forward to A Quiet Place Part 2. I think that film is going to be fantastic. John Krasinski did a great job with the first film. The fact that this takes place in the same universe and continues the story on, I think it's a sequel. It's one of the few sequels where you're like, this could work. This could actually be a good film and not just a cash grab opportunity. Even though most films, and to some extent, obviously are. But then, of course, also I think about the longer term projects, right? Wonder Woman 1984. I can say honestly, from the trailers, I'm not too excited for it, but I think that it has the potential to be a very good sequel, a good follow-up to the first one. Patty Jenkins has shown that she's a very capable director. Gal Gadot obviously has shown that she's a very capable Wonder Woman, and I hope everything gets to come together. Obviously, the big elephant in the room on that one, of course, is Kristen Wiig is in the film, and anytime Kristen Wiig's in any movie, I get scared, I get nervous, because I just don't think that she's that talented, and especially since she's supposed to be the villain in the movie, that makes me even more concerned because that's just not her character. But we'll see. Maybe Patty Jenkins can get a good performance out of her. So far, she's only ever had one great performance, in my opinion. And it was in The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I don't know what Ben Stiller did, but somehow he got a good performance out of Kristen Wiig in that film. But yeah, Liquid Blake, man, I totally hear you. And yeah, I mean, what's going to happen with that? You know, is that a film that they're going to push back? Is that a film that they think is going to be more of a cult film that could actually probably do as well on demand, video on demand instead? In my opinion, it actually probably could. Bill and Ted 3 seems like the kind of movie that if they were to announce we're going to release this on demand, you would actually have a lot of people willing to pay the $20 rental fee. Even though I think that's, way too high. But I think you could potentially see that. But again, who knows? Depends on where the states are in the regulations, and it depends on where the theaters are as well, because that's the other thing that people don't talk about is that movie theaters are going to change already, because there's no way AMC is going to keep open all of their theaters. AMC, Regal, Cinemark, all 3 major chains, and even the minor regional chains, right? Every single one of them have struggling theaters that were already on the brink of closure. This has got to be the end point for those theaters. So you're already going to see less movie theaters coming out of this once they actually reopen. If even a place like the, I want to say Roadhouse, but I don't think it's the Roadhouse. You all know what I'm talking about, though. The ones that are based in Texas, there were some in Arizona. 3 theaters under this brand closed in Arizona this past year because of COVID. So if even a chain like that, which was doing pretty well because it has a bar, it has restrictions, it actually does have people that will, go up to you if you're on your phone, for instance, right? Things that people have been clamoring and asking for a very long time. Even if a place like that has to close down its theaters with as little theaters as it has, if you've got a giant corporation and a giant movie theater chain, Lord knows how many theaters are going to close from that alone. So, I mean, that's the other impact that we're not really talking about. Liquid Blake also says, but I do think it is one that would do well on home video. Boom. Actually, all right, cool. So you already said exactly what I did about it. Yeah, I agree. I think Bill and Ted 3 would actually do as well. Again, better, worse, hard to say. I think Bill and Ted 3 would do as well because anyone that was planning to see that movie is going to be willing to pay for it, I think. I think there's enough people that are hardcore fans of the franchise, they would be willing to pay the $20 fee, even if it's just them watching it, right? If you have a family, if you have even one other person watching the movie with you, it's no different than going to the theater. Because at that point, you think of it as, oh, this is like two $10 tickets. If you have 3 people, oh, it's even better, right? Big families, even better. In fact, this could be an opportunity for you to be like, hey, I'm going to rent this movie, everybody. Come on over. If your state, of course, allows it. Let's have a movie watch party. And the only limitation you have really is your own entertainment system, which is why you still have a large portion of the population that do want to go to theaters, right? Because not everyone can afford the giant 4K TVs yet, even though they're very affordable now. It's very easy now to get high-quality image and high-quality sound into the home. What is weird to me, though, is how the sound systems are still, I think, in my opinion, so expensive. TVs have gone down in price so much, but the sound systems have like stayed around the same. Because that's like the one thing I need. Peabody, actually, I think I saw him in the chat. I'll get to him once I get there in the chat. But I think he was the one that said he was watching The Expanse and he didn't have any issues with the dialogue like I've been having. And he said the reason why might be because he's not using the TV speakers. He's using a separate sound system. And that's one thing I would love to get at some point. You know, that's like the next major. So basically, I need to get a legit 4K TV. And then I also want to get a legit sound system as well. The end goal, of course, would be like if I ever get the jackpot of a, you know, I don't ever really buy lottery tickets, but let's say like lottery scenario, right? We get a huge amount of money. I can spend it on various things. As far as things for myself, a legit movie theater system would be awesome because then it would give me less reason to leave the home as much as I love the theater, which I do plan to continue to go to even throughout all of this. Let's see. Frank says the last movie I saw in theaters was Bad Boys 3. Yeah, and you know what? Actually, that's actually not as bad as you would think, Frank, because that is one of the last major releases that we had before COVID. In fact, the last weekend releases that we had when theaters started to shut down en masse was Bloodshot. That was the big movie of the weekend, was Bloodshot. And now that film has actually come back in theaters, is already available to buy on 4K, Blu-ray, etc. So that's interesting, though. The last one you saw was Bad Boys 3. The last one I saw in theaters, it may have been Sonic, to be honest. It may have actually been Sonic, because I was waiting for the summer movie theater season to start. Had I known this was going to happen, I would have been out all the time, seeing as many movies as I possibly could. Because obviously the other problem is that this took place during the school year, and so it made things a little bit more complicated. But Mr. Peabody, Mr. Peabody's evil twin, not Mr. Peabody, his evil twin with the beautiful hair, is in the chat. Welcome, good sir. They are showing some love in the chat to each other, because if you don't know, Frank and the Clan and Mr. Peabody and his evil twin, they're all besties. And it's also really cool because I feel like, part of that friendship is from this channel. Because if I'm not mistaken, they met each other through the Discord interactions, especially earlier on in the life of this channel, and have since been friends for, again, I guess 2 years now, because that's about the lifespan of the channel. So it's been really cool to see that friendship really flourish behind the scenes. And now they're like sending packages to each other, and Peabody got an account set up for himself here in the States, I think at Target, so that way if he ever wants to send me a movie, instead of it sending from Australia, he can just send it directly. So they're awesome. So both of them are Cobbas. What's going on, Cobba? What's going on, Cobba? And I always love to see their interactions in the chat. So I hope y'all are both doing well. Alex, Arrow Cave, what's going on, Alex McCarthy? Alex says, Jaws 19 will be shown in theaters. This I know. Thank God we have not gotten any more Jaws films. There was a time when we could have easily gotten a new Jaws film every single year. Now, you could argue we've gotten them in the form of other things like Shark Night and 47 Meters Down Uncaged, like shark movies. But I'm just glad that we have not gotten any like films that are supposed to take place in the same exact universe as the original Jaws. I think we've seen enough. Liquid Blake says, it's tough to differentiate the blockbuster movies they release for a premium and the regular ones available. Mostly talking about a Disney Plus type system that makes original content but is also attached to a studio. Why pay more down the road just because Disney says this one is better than what we offer for free? I worded this terribly, but I hope the point gets across. Free in terms of no extra cost. No, Liquid Blake, that actually makes total sense, right? Because the problem with the system that I said is the inevitability, right? Which is there's going to be paid premium content. Is how is it that you can say what's readily available just from the cost of the subscription fee, right? If you pay the subscription fee, boom, you get all this content. You don't have to pay anything extra. You get all this content. How is it that a studio could say, but if you want this thing or this thing, then you have to pay more? And I think that's a good point, right? And I think it's going to be harder and that's why I think Netflix might actually, I think Netflix personally is on the decline, for one. And two, that means I think Netflix at some point either will be bought out or could go out of business altogether, because they're losing a lot of their movies and TV shows that they don't own themselves. They luckily have been in the game for so long that they have a lot of their own original content that, does get some recognition, right? Obviously, Stranger Things is a huge property. They're going to need a lot more than that, though, to keep going as they continue to lose contracts from these studios that are pulling their movies and shows back to their own streaming services, like Warner Brothers putting things on HBO Max and Disney putting things on Disney Plus. But the mindset that I would have is this, right? Is that they would probably still market movies the way they did before with trailers and posters, only now what they would do is say, streaming on Disney Plus for $10, right? And so therefore only the movies that are brand new, right, that are brand new and are specified as being costing a premium price will be the ones that will be considered, is what my guess would be, right? And so if I was the studio, I guess the mindset would be, if the film cost this amount of money, we know subscription fees are not going to cover all of it. We need to make the money up somehow. Those are the movies that will cost a premium price. That's my guess into how they're doing it. And as I said, that's why I don't think that they could pull the trigger on that today, but I do think they're talking about this exact situation, right? What do we determine? Now, here's the other thing, too, that hopefully I maybe didn't make clear. It's not that the movie would be premium forever, too, by the way. So it would be premium for basically for a set period of time. So basically, it would be the same thing like with movies, right? If you want to see it right away, hey, you can, but you got to pay $10 to get access to it, right? And the reason why I put $10 out there is because if you are already behind a paywall, they're going to ask for a reasonable price. They're not going to ask the $20 that Universal is just to rent, right? They're going to ask for something more reasonable if it's going to be behind the paywall like that. So, but also, it's not going to be like that forever. So for the first month or so, 2 months, again, they can really determine whatever it is. It'll be available exclusive on their service for a premium price. And then I guess if you had to ask me right now, the smart thing would be to pull it off the service altogether. And then that point you can put it on demand, right? So at that point you would say, all right, now it's off the streaming service and now we're putting it to buy on demand, right? So on iTunes, Google Play, etc. And then of course that gives you time to get the physical media going, and then eventually it's available to purchase then. And then once you have the physical media come out, that's when you can move it back after the fact to the service for free. So basically, you still therefore get this extended period of time where if you don't buy it within the first 2-3 weeks, month or so of its release on the service to rent, then either you have to pay more to buy it on demand right away digitally, or wait longer for the physical release, or if you want it for free completely, wait even longer for that. So my guess is that is the route that they would take. That would make the most financial sense, at least to me. Poppyton, what's going on? Says hi before going to bed. Hopefully you're doing just fine, Poppyton. Got off an 8-hour stream, have 6 hours before a 12-hour shift. Damn, yeah, get that sleep then. 12-hour shift does not sound like fun, and you need this. Frankie the Clan says, like this. Exactly. Frankie the Clan, you did it right, tagging in the channel. Poppyton says, hi, been a while, glad to see you. Poppyton, glad to see you too. Again, it has indeed been a while. Hope all things are going well. Aren't you one of my D-Live fam? Aren't you? Don't you have a D-Live channel that you run? Hopefully that's going well, man. Glad to see you here. Frank says, well, I forgot to tag you, so sorry earlier. Oh, it's okay, Frank. It's all right. That's why in the earlier chats, I tend to read those automatically so that then I can say, by the way, this is how things go. Alex says, Mando is a baddie in Wonder Woman 84. Yeah. Again, Wonder Woman 84, who knows if that film's going to be good or not, honestly. Again, if it's like the first film, then it'll definitely be solid. But even the first film, in my opinion, wasn't really amazing, right? It was solid, but it wasn't amazing. It was like a B- movie for me. It's a B- movie because the CGI was still very cringe a lot of the time. The story was okay. Acting for the most part was pretty damn good. But yeah, it's one where I hope that the sequel is better. Frank says, I hate to see our theaters going away, but I'd be okay if drive-ins came back, even though I didn't see that happening with more drive-ins. Yeah, I mean, you already kind of see that, though, Frank, right? So what theaters are doing well right now? Well, in some states, it's the only theaters that can stay open, and those are the outdoor theaters, right? The drive-in theaters. So you've actually already seen a resurgence in drive-ins. There was a report that I think Walmart in certain areas was actually building temporary drive-in theaters in their parking lots. So basically their store is open, and then as soon as night happens, that's when you can actually go and watch a movie, right? And spend money that way. And so drive-ins, I think, have a lot going for them, right? Because the concept of the drive-in is that it starts late, for one, because depending on where you are in the world, sunset doesn't happen until like 9 p.m., and you can't have any movie show with light at all. Otherwise, you can't see the screen. But you see double features. You get double movies. You get extra features in between. You get to just relax in your car, right? You get to enjoy things like that. There's places where before COVID, you could go outside and, put a mat down in the grass and watch it from a hill, etc. So there's a lot of things that I think are really beneficial to it. And you're going to see already, you've seen a resurgence in that, right? And as long as theaters, for the most part, remain closed, I think that drive-ins are going to see a resurgence of sorts, right? And so I think actually the lifespan of drive-ins has been expanded. And I think you're going to actually see, as far as the numbers go, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of 2020, the number of drive-ins will have increased. Probably for one of the first times, or by one of the largest percentages in, decades, if I had to take a guess. Frank says, all you need is a soundbar with a subwoofer. Yes. I like how you said woofer first instead of woofer. But yeah, man, absolutely. Absolutely, man. I know I need the soundbar and the subwoofer, but as I said, like, it's one of those things where do I spend the money on the, trying to get the legit 4K TV first? Do I do the sound system first? And then, of course, there's all these other questions, right? Because my end goal would be that if I could ever get like a legit surround sound theater system, that would be awesome. So do I invest in the sound system first because the TV can come at a later point, or what, right? And obviously it becomes even more complicated because baby Thor is only 2-3 months away. And that's going to obviously take the attention of, because basically the only thing I ever spend really on myself as far as movies and things like that is revenue I make from the channel, right? So every time I get the check, every time I get my deposit from YouTube, and lately it's been terrible, like January especially, the post-Christmas ad rates are terrible, and it was already terrible in the first place. So I get, between $200 and $350 from YouTube a month, right? So not as much as you would think. Right? You think, oh, you've got 22,000 subs. You got to be making, $1,000 a month or something. Nah, nay. It's more like 200 to 300 or so. Again, depends on the month, depends on everything else. Then, of course, you go to things like Patreon, which is between $150, $180 a month. Subscribestar, which is a little bit different because you can only take out when you reach a certain threshold, maybe $100 a month-ish. You go to things like D-Live, where maybe every 2 months I can get about $100 out of that. So, it's not that I'm not making anything. And a lot of that stuff, keep in mind, and I always try to be very transparent, right? A lot of that money, most of that money goes right back into the channel. I do a lot of giveaways for people that are my $5 and up backers on Patreon Subscribe Star. Try and do as many giveaways as I can for that. Been very slow for July. If you are a Patreon or Subscribe Star member at $5 and up, I want to apologize because this month has been very slow. But again, things have just been very, very, very busy here. And the way I normally do it is I try and gauge the pricing and the deals on 4K titles because I like to try and give away 4Ks especially. And unfortunately, 4Ks can be very inconsistent. So like one day it could be like $15, $20, which I think is a pretty fair amount to spend on a 4K title. But then all of a sudden everyone's bought it and now it goes back up to 30 or 40, which is not as realistic. So that's why I've been kind of slower on that. I'm going to try and get like at least 1 or 2 giveaways before the end of the month though of 4K titles to try and make it up to you guys. But anyway, so a lot of the money, most of the money actually goes into the giveaways. If I were to add up the money I've spent on giveaways, thousands upon thousands. Ever since I started doing the giveaway, I've spent thousands of dollars. And again, not of my own money, of the money that I've been making, right? And so all of it does go back into the channel. But then I also, of course, buy movies for myself. I buy movies and 4K steelbooks, things like that for myself, because basically my wife's like, it's your hobby, right? It's something that you enjoy doing. And so I don't think you should spend our money that's going to have to go towards, especially now, our child on things like movies and stuff that you really don't need. So it's like, I agree. So instead it'll be on shipping costs and things like that for the channel. But anyway, just kind of give y'all some transparency on that, right? But basically that means all I can really do is try and save up the YouTube money. But then as I mentioned, though, in that kind of, area, it makes things complicated because it means I have to make sure I have enough to be able to give back to you guys to fulfill the giveaways. If I have to send a t-shirt out for one of my $25 up backers, make sure I have enough for, so I have to make sure that I'm balancing, spending it back on the channel in a real way, right? And then also, potentially saving up money for myself, right? And it's one of those things where I usually lean more towards trying to get more for more people than for myself, So that's kind of been the problem with it all. And Peabody didn't tag me correctly, but I saw it anyway. Yeah, so now Frank has corrected him. Thank you, Frank. But I'll read it anyway because I do see it. I do see it there. And Peabody says, yep, all on you, Odin. We met in your Discord. I thought that was the case. So I'm glad that friendship was able to come about. And then Frank, of course, is going to mention this. I bought a popcorn bucket just because I plan to see a bunch of movies this year, just to be able to talk with you about them. Yep, I know, Frank. I know, man. And, I bought that same popcorn bucket. And as I said, I would not be surprised if they tell everyone, if you've got the 2020 bucket, it'll be good through 2021, because that's what most companies have been doing with anything that was this year specific. So I think Frank will be okay. I think we'll be okay. Because if they don't do that automatically, I guarantee you're going to have enough people, mostly named Karen, that are going to complain on our behalf, and it's going to get changed. So if Karen could ever do anything right, it would be complaining about making sure our popcorn buckets can be filled at a cheaper price all throughout 2021 when the movies are actually coming out. Oh, man. Alex says, I'm still waiting for Jaws 5. Well, keep waiting because I don't want it. Frank then says, yes, it is all you, man. We met on your Chewy stream and then chatted on Discord all because of you, brother. That's awesome, man. Yeah, the Chewy onesie. The Chewy onesie. Let's see. Frank says, and Jay Clark, he had talk with Peabody. I met Jay Clark through your channel and Discord too, but you brought all of us together, so thank you so much. Yeah, man. And I don't know where Jay Clark has been recently. Is he the one? Because there's been a channel that's popped up. Is he an artist? Is he the one that's like Jason Clark, the artist? Because there's one person that has a name of someone that's been a Patreon supporter. I think it's still a Patreon supporter and has been for months, who I think has his own channel now. But yeah, it's really interesting because, if you ever go back to those earlier streams, it's amazing how many people, one, are still here, who have been here for about a year and a half, 2 years now. And then also those that have disappeared, those that have gone away or have changed their name and we don't even know about it. And it's all good, Peabody, for using the wrong tab. It happens. Yeah, I thought Poppington was D-Live fam. Liquid Blake says, I like all your plan for the streaming services, but to uncomplicate things, I think they should record movies onto flat round discs, called them Blu-rays, and spin away. And you know what, man, Liquid Blake, either you or someone else has said that, saying, you know what, why don't they just release it on Blu-ray and, just say screw it. And I think that to me makes sense too. But here's again the problem, right? If a studio was going to, let's take a big movie, right? Only for big movies. That could work for smaller movies, but for big ones. Let's say they said, all right, we're not releasing Wonder Woman 1984 into theaters. We're only going to put it straight onto Blu-ray and DVD. Would they make money off of it? Yeah, absolutely. Would they make profit? Arguably, because you'd probably have a higher influx of people buying it. There's two issues that come with that, though. One, to buy the Blu-ray outright means that the price of the Blu-ray would probably be more than what it normally would be, because the studio in their mind is going to say, all right, this is a test. We're trying this out. We want to make sure we can make our money back somehow, right? So one, you'd be talking about spending more on a Blu-ray that, yeah, you would own, but you're still spending more than what you normally would on streaming or on a movie ticket. So that's the first problem. And then two, you're still going to have a large portion of people that would much rather stay at home and be able just to turn it on their TV, right? There's that laziness factor that is very much a part of our culture. Obviously, especially our American culture, but I would imagine other cultures around the world too, right? I mean, I have a giant shelf full of Blu-rays, but guess what? I've digitized them all too. So if I ever feel like putting the physical disc in a Blu-ray player to get the best experience, right, I'll do that. But there's going to be days where I'm going to be lazy and I'm going to say, let me just pull up my Plex server real quick and just play it right through there. It'll be the same quality because the file on there is the one-to-one disc image, essentially. And if I get direct play, it's going to be the same bit rate that it would get even if it was being played via Blu-ray, right? So that's the problem that you would find with that, is that you would find people willing to buy it, right? But then the reason why people buy movies normally isn't to test it out, right? People buy movies that they've seen and they want to see again and they want to own because they love it. Or they will buy a movie on sale because they never got to see it in theaters and they're like, oh, $5, $10 for this Blu-ray? Hey, that's about the price I would have spent to see it in movies. And guess what? It means I own it. And if I don't like it, I can resell it and get some of that money back probably, So that's the problem with just going straight to DVD or Blu-ray, is that it's not a guarantee of them getting any return on their investment. So again, for people like you and I, who like Blu-rays, who like physical media, it would make sense. But to the vast populace, and especially to the populace that would cause and would result in profit, it wouldn't be nearly as sensible. So that's the reason why that wouldn't be the case. Even though my system that I laid out is more complex, it results in more money. And again, that's what the studio's mindset is, number one. And it's sad, right? You wish that you would have creativity and profit both at least equal. But in modern day Hollywood, it's, hey, let's make as much money as possible. And then in most cases, it's actually, this is the hierarchy of the studio system. Let's make as much money as possible. Let's push our agenda. And, let's make a good movie, I guess. Like, that's the criteria. So money, though, is at the top. And the complicated system I laid out would result in more money, because it means you'll have a higher chance of people double dipping, spending on a movie more than once, to either rent it, then buy it, rent it multiple times, then buy it, etc. So it might be more complicated, but it means more revenue for them. Alice McCarthy says, this is why we need an Odin's movie theater where it allows dogs and pizza. Man, if I could afford it, I would. And especially, as I mentioned, because we know that theaters are going to be shutting down left and right in the next couple of years especially, there's going to be a lot of real estate available. There's going to be a lot of old theaters available. That'd be awesome. Let's see. Peabody's Evil Twin. In Western Australia, the border is still locked down, but everything, including movie theaters, are open. Well, hey, I guess you always got to take a look at the bright side of life, right? Peabody then says, excuse me, Peabody then says, when I said separate sound system, it is an amp I picked up off the side of the road and fixed, and 35-year-old speakers, but the sound is good. Hey, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter where it came from, man. It's the older systems that tend actually to be not only more reliable, but also pretty damn good, too. So the fact, though, you have a separate sound system, though, so that's going to already, it doesn't matter if it's surround sound, doesn't matter if it's state-of-the-art. I mean, it's going to give you boosted levels, and it's going to make the speech, specifically in that example you were talking about with the Expanse, it's going to give you boosted levels to where the speech is going to be a lot more audible. He says, I am old school like Adam. You either fix it or you make it. Yeah, and I'm not. I'm more new school, which is, yeah, I'd rather just buy the new thing. Eric, what's going on? I'm sure that's the only comment we're going to see from him today. Oh, man. Frank says, we are not here for items. We are here for you. I know that, Frank. I know that. And sometimes I think I get lost in that. I try and get y'all as much as I possibly can, right? I try and give back, but that's just what I do. Like, that's just my mindset, right? Because as much as this is something that is, I guess you could say like a side job, it is more of a hobby because it's fun. I do it because I enjoy it. I do it because it's fun. I've mentioned this several times before. If this ever stopped being fun, I would stop doing it. But it is fun. So I'm still doing it. Even through years of school, years of craziness, right? I'm still doing it. And there's been times when I've needed to take a break, and y'all have always been very understanding, saying, no, you're obviously health is the most important thing, mental health especially. So there's been times when I've had to, skip a video for a day or take a week off from making stuff or streaming, right? And even then, though, right, I would come back and I would be, I miss this. And I like doing it. It's something that's fun. But then also it's like I'm making this money. And here's the other, there is two reasons why, by the way, that I like to spend a lot of it on you guys, right? One, because it's something that I want to do, right? I want to be able to put it back into the channel. And for me, the giveaways, I think, is a very great way because it's a way of me saying thank you to the people that are supporting me financially, right? It's just like it's one of those things where it's like, it's the least I can do. It's the very least that I can do. But then second, it's also because I really can't just hold on to it. I can't really hoard it up or save it over an extended period of time because, people forget, you don't just make money in America. You make money and then you pay taxes on it too. So essentially, if I were to for example, just, put it into an account somewhere and save it over time, it would end up costing us more because I would have to, because I don't pay taxes. Rather, I do pay taxes. YouTube doesn't take taxes or charge taxes on anything that you make. Patreon the same way. Subscribestar the same way. So you have to report, if you make a certain amount, you have to report it to the IRS, and then it becomes taxable. So the only way really to get around that is to spend it all, essentially. And that's why I spend thousands of dollars every year on giveaways and on things for the channel, because it means that I can write it off on the taxes and I don't have to worry about paying taxes on it because it's being used as a business expense. So there is a double reason for it, right? There's a logical one, which is, well, why would you want to pay taxes on it, right? Especially when it's something you're really just doing for fun and you get the money and you're like, oh, I want to spend it on the channel anyway. But, yeah. Let's see here. Peabody's Evil Twin says, different Jay Clark. Okay, I thought so. I thought that was the case, but I wasn't sure. Alex says, Odin's Karen blog. Yeah, let's hopefully hope that's never the case. Frank then confirms also, not that person. Frank and the Clan says, James Clark, the artist, is a painter from Ohio. Got it. Peabody says, Jason Clark is the artist. James Clark is our friend. Okay, got you. Well, I haven't seen James Clark around in a very long time, but I'm pretty sure Jay Clark is still a Patreon member. Yeah, either way, they're two different people. That's good to know. All right, Liquid Blake says, Robert Meyer Burnett has an interesting anecdote about how Walmart kind of destroyed the DVD market. They would campaign for less bonus features so they could sell it cheaper as a loss leader just to get people in store, cannibalize the market with cheap copies, and no effort put into the releases anymore. That's actually very interesting. I have not seen that video by Robert Meyer Burnett about that. And that's actually brand new news to me, but that does make a lot of sense. If you go ahead and, as a giant company like Walmart, say, hey, stop putting all these special features on, we want to sell these for as cheap as possible, and that means all you're doing is getting the movie, and people that tend to buy the movie don't just want the movie, they also want the special features, they want the commentary, they want, bonus stuff on there too. And even though you're getting it for cheaper, you're not getting any of those extra features. Yeah, I can understand that. Now, I would say the caveat to that, Liquid Blake, would be I could see how that destroyed DVDs as a viable solution. But as far as Blu-rays are concerned, almost all Blu-rays that I get all still come with special features because they can fit it. The movie files range from 15 gigs to 30 or 40 gigs, and that leaves about 10 gigs of extra space. And most of them, at the very least, will have commentaries on there. Most will have things like blooper reels, things like that. But I guess the mindset there would be that you've seen a decrease in special features. Even though it started off on DVD, you've seen a decrease in Blu-rays and 4Ks because of the likes of companies like Walmart trying to get things for the cheapest rate possible. So, yeah, I guess that is the trade-off in a lot of ways. Because I did see this comment, Fresh Show, though, just tag the channel name when you're on Twitch is all you need to do. Fresh Show says, out of all AMM 2020 movie watch parties, what movie was your least favorite? Oh, man. So I would have to go through them all, but I'm pretty sure overall, easily, the least favorite for me was Superman the movie, because that ending, still to this day, drives me up the wall insane. The ending of Superman the movie 1 is terrible. I don't care what the plan was. I don't care, if there's a supercut out there of both movies. And again, does not mean anything to me. The movie that we watched is what is being judged here. And the movie that's available, the theatrical cut of Superman 1, the ending destroys the movie. And the reason why is because the narrative problems created by the concept of turning the world backwards, to turn back time, showing all of the things that were destroyed not being destroyed, all so that he can then come back to save Lois, even though it's established that all of those things that were undone were then redone again. And then that means they were redone again, which means Superman had to stop those things again, means that he still would not have been able to make it back in time to save Lois. Or the only other way to explain it is that he skipped all of those things and fixing all of those things, and therefore let a bunch of people die to save Lois instead. So that would definitely be my least favorite. No question about it. Liquid Blake, he experienced it with his Superman Returns DVD documentary work. Gotcha. Peabody's Evil Twin, admit it, you like getting random stuff from an Aussie. It's always a surprise. No, I do. And again, that's the other thing too, right? I get random packages in the mail from Australia, from Bruce, from all across the world. And that's also a lot of fun too, right? That's something that's unique, that's different, that I've never experienced before. And it's been a lot of fun. Peabody says also, the coffee grinder would have had you wondering, but that wasn't for you. Yeah, that would have been for sure. Yeah, coffee really isn't my thing. In fact, the only coffee I do have is Starbucks puts out these, like, I guess half liters, or I don't know exactly what the metric is on it. But it's essentially like they're flavored coffees. So what we've been doing is my wife and I, we get it's like the caramel coffee, and then we mix it in with our chocolate milk, and it's delicious. So you get a little bit of the caffeine to start you off in the morning. It's pretty good. Liquid Blake, RMB has told the story a few times on his live stream shows. Yeah, I don't watch enough of his shows, and really it comes down to just not having enough time. I'm already trying to watch my own shows. I'm already trying to keep up with, channels. I've fallen behind on so many channels. You all know I used to watch Gary's videos every day, because I love him. I think Gary is one of the best YouTubers out there right now. Nerdrotic is, again, a great channel, solid. I'm always so happy that I've been, blessed to be on the Friday Night Tights show every Friday. But even his videos, I can't keep up with anymore, just because I'm trying to watch so many other things. And then, of course, now the new thing is there's this awesome new game called Ghost of Tsushima, and I've been eating up the gameplay of that, man. Like, I'm actually tempted to buy it myself because it looks just amazing. And the story looks awesome. And yeah, so I've been watching PewDiePie's gameplay, especially because he normally is able to add a lot of funny commentary to it. The sad thing about PewDiePie, though, is that he's been hiding his gameplay behind a paywall. So like the first edition, the first episode was available for everyone. It was like a 3-hour stream. But his second and third one you couldn't find. And then I found out by just doing Google searches, it's because it's only for members. And so there's been one person who has actually done well enough to where now he's actually monetized himself. I don't know how long PewDiePie is going to allow it for, where basically he downloads the streams and then re-uploads them for everyone to see. So I've been enjoying that because, hey, I like seeing his gameplay through it. So let's see. Frank says, time for the first Church of Odin's movie blog to be tax-free. Yeah, that's definitely not going to get away with that. That's for sure. Alex says Smallville did the turn back time thingy better than Superman the movie. Yeah. Well, Smallville did a lot of things really well. Liquid Blake says, if you ever watch Superman again, just turn it off when Superman confronts Lex underground. Much better movie. Yeah, but then you're not seeing the whole movie, so it kind of loses its point over there. Eric says, we need a Ghost of Tsushima live stream Friday Night Tights edition. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Gary is not really much of a gamer anyway. Everyone on that stream, for the most part, really isn't that much of a gamer. I mean, I guess Az might be, but again, I don't think he's done any real gameplays. I think he's bought. No, he is one because I think he bought Ghost of Tsushima. I think he's either been playing it or bought it and is about to play it or something like that. And then, of course, I'm a casual gamer, so that would never happen. That would never happen. But anyway, I'm caught up with the chat now, and we're just about at time as far as what we normally do here. So I guess what I'll end with is just a little talk about. Let me see if I can find a way to access this. So I watched a movie the other day, and it's I haven't talked about it on a stream yet, to my knowledge, and it doesn't look like I can access it via my computer. If I had my tablet next to me, it's charging in right now. But anyway, I'll just give a quick rundown of it and hopefully be able to give a more full review at another point in time. But basically, I got to see a movie called Copland for the first time. This has been probably about 2 weeks ago. And it's a movie that I always heard recommended. As you all know, I'm friends with John Flickinger of the Flick Pick. And in all of his Blu-ray collection videos, he would always bring it up, and he would always, talk about how it was great. It was either him or Stuckman, or maybe even both of them, would talk about how it's a very underrated film. It's from 1997. It was actually written and directed by James Mangold. For those who don't know James Mangold, he's the guy that did the phenomenal movie Logan. Again, phenomenal movie. Also did Ford v Ferrari, which is another movie that just did not get nearly enough recognition. But it's fantastic. It's got an amazing cast. Sylvester Stallone's in there, Harvey Keitel, Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, Peter Berg, Janine Garofalo, Robert Patrick, Michael Rappaport. Again, crap ton of people, really talented actors in there. And so the story, the basic premise is, it's, as it says here on IMDb, the sheriff of a suburban New Jersey community populated by New York City police officers slowly discovers the town is a front for mob connections and corruption. So basically what you have is there is a town right on the coast, really, of New Jersey, right on the opposite side of I think it was the George Washington Bridge, I think. And but basically it was a town built specifically for New York City cops. And it's under the jurisdiction of a local sheriff. And because it's in a different state, it means that it's not under the jurisdiction of the NYPD. And so basically you find out through the movie that this is where all of the corruption that exists in the NYPD takes place. Because they're out of the jurisdiction of the NYPD, they can meet up with various mobsters. They can make their sweet dealings behind the scenes. And so basically it deals with this local sheriff finding out more. You know, his whole life as a sheriff has been this kind of looking the other way, where he knows something's going on, but he just stays out of it because he's got a job. He feels important. He wanted to be a part of the NYPD, but he couldn't pass his test because of some medical issues, I think. And so it's him trying to come to grips with that, and now trying to basically uncover the vast conspiracy and the vast amounts of corruption that's actually happening. And of course, you have FBI agents involved because they are aware that this stuff is going on, but they need someone to be able to help expose it. And it's really good. It's really solid. It's not as amazing or mind-blowing as it was kind of built up to be, but it is James Mangold, so it's a really solid movie with great acting in it, and I think has some great character work in there as well that really just keeps you not only guessing, but also makes you, again, it takes you on a journey. And whenever films can take you on a journey, I think it means it's doing its job right. And so Copland, I think, does that very well. And I ended up giving that movie a B+, because even though I liked it a lot, the characters were great, the story was very interesting, there were obviously some imperfections with it as well. And if I had my notes in front of me, I'd be able to say like the issues that I had. I want to say it was either editing or pacing, or again, one of those technical things that kind of kept it back from being in the A range for me. But it was really solid nonetheless. So that was like the only other thing that I wanted to talk about today, before ending up with the last bit of comments here. Let's see. Alex McCarthy says Copland is awesome. Yep, Copland with Sly Stallone. He ate ice cream to get fat. Yeah, that's the other thing too, is that it also features a very large, or a larger than usual, Sly Stallone, who put on some pounds to be the, and also it adds to the character, right? Because he is a sheriff of a place filled with cops, and so crime really isn't a big thing there, except of course for the corruption and mob stuff, which gets covered up by the cops there. And so he is allowed, therefore, to get fat and lazy with it. But anyway, though, that is going to pretty much wrap things up for me today. So before I actually end the stream, I'll go ahead and do like I normally do, even though we're on Twitch. If you are a member on the YouTube channel, again, on the main channel, if you are at the level of Army of Asgard or Keeper of the Bifrost, which is a $5 and up level, you get a shout out at the end of every live stream that I do. And right now there are 9 of those people. So we got Orange Chat Reviews, Bruce, Adam Avery, Latino Slant, Larry, the Bosco 2000, Twirly Wolf, Aiden Vickery, and J-Stow. Thank y'all very much for being members at those levels. To everyone here on Twitch, thank you so very much for joining me this morning. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, it's a longer form, more chill version of the shows that I normally do, right? The Welcome to Asgard podcast is all over the place. We're jumping around, doing crazy things, right? And then this one is just a lot more low-key, spending a little bit more time. So we started off talking about the end of the box office as we know it. Again, why that affects me, especially as someone that loves doing the numbers breakdown and things like that. So trying to find kind of my new voice in the void that is left and will be left, because again, I don't think it's ever really coming back. And then talked a little bit about just in general movie talk and things going on in the world, and ending with a mini review of the film Copland. So Frank says, thank you for spending your time with us. Thank you very much, man, for spending your time with me. And also, of course, to the clan of hounds that are there, I'm sure, as well. Peabody, have a good night to you, good sir, because it is indeed, 10:21 p.m. over there where you are, so perfect time for you to go to sleep. Eric, have a good one. Luca Blake says, farewell till next time. Yes, indeed. So for the next couple days, the schedule. So tomorrow, I will be 5 p.m. Eastern time, roughly. We usually start late. Over on Gary Nerdrotic. Again, so Nerdrotic is the channel name. Over on his channel, we'll have Friday Night Tights. Should be a fun one like it normally is. Saturday night on my main channel, Odin's Movie Blog, we, of course, will be over there talking about a wide variety of things, any major news stories that might pop up between now and then, or anything that might be of interest. We'll talk about 7 p.m. Eastern time on that channel. And then Sunday, we will actually have another edition of The Chosen of Valhalla. So we will have the Chosen of Valhalla stream this Sunday. It's going to be set around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. However, it could be delayed to 2 Eastern. I'll keep y'all updated, though, what happens with that. Depends on schedules and things like that, because I try and help out with my local church to do help with the live streaming duties, since I have some technical knowledge. So that has kept me a little bit later than normal, but I think I can still probably make it back, no problem. But that is the upcoming schedule, and then Monday is going to be the last, as far as we know it, the last official, like, on time, will be working AMM stream, Asgardian Movie Morning, on the Welcome to Asgard channel, where we will be watching, I don't even remember what film won. The Conversation. We'll be watching The Conversation, and I think I still need to create an event for that. So please stay tuned for that. You guys are all awesome and amazing and beautiful people. Thank you all so very much for your love and support. If you have not followed the Twitch channel yet, and you are here, please consider following. And also, I do see in the left-hand corner that my boy, my brother, Lethal Lightning, the Australian samurai, is streaming Ghost of Tsushima. I recommend not only showing him some love, but even watching it, because it is a pretty awesome game from what I've seen of it so far. So thank you all very much for being here. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now a huge shout out to all of my Patreon members: Albertus Magnus, Animation Commentator, Brian P., David Bobrizik, Dion, DivX, Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Wiener Dog Clan, Harold Francis, the Honker Chonker Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, Intertrap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toon, Jonathan Carney, Kenneth Camille, Lady T, Laura Story, who is the modern Major General, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mike Jackson, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, Orange at Reviews, Outpost Dyer, Out of Step with Reality, Riff Magos, Rosetta Ellen, Steve Glasker, Teresa Martin, Theodore Benton, Tina Bojan, The DJD Show, and Tina B. Thank you all for being my Patreon members, and a huge shout out to my Subscribe Star members: Stand For, John B., Perpetual Punster, Robert Revo, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, G2 Cool 99, Darkstar 57, Alex McCarthy, or J. Alex McCarthy Jr., US 888209 Fast, Dean Heiss, Harold Francis, J. Rod the Beer Guru, Nevedon G. Adams, and ZK Man, and Father Damian Cook. Thank you all so very much for being my Patreon and Subscribe Star members. Seriously, you are the wind beneath my wings. You help keep the lights on. You help support things like the giveaways for my $5 and up backers, and also allow me to do a lot of the extra stuff for the channel, including the exclusive OMB podcast that I do every couple of weeks with John, the Flick Pick of the Flick Pick channel. And yeah, thank you so much for your support. Don't want to really drag it out too long this month. You guys are amazing and beautiful people. If you want to have a name shout out, if you want to have access to giveaways, podcasts, any of that kind of stuff, check the links in the description for Patreon and Subscribe Star. You guys rock. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.